another episode of Silver Nuts Garage. If you've already subscribed, we appreciate it. If you haven't, consider it. And remember to smash that bell so you're notified the next time I make fun of my fat bastard Buddy Jones. So he was just here, and we got a buddy's bike up on the table. We're going to do some tires and some oil changes, 3-hole oil change, and some other things that need to be done on this bike. So he left, and I thought that I would do a video on timing. And we all know timing is everything. So I have watched quite a few videos. I don't know everything that there is to know about timing, obviously. But I've learned some things that kind of burn it in my mind, and I figured I'd pass that on. So timing, what is timing? Timing is when your spark happens in relationship to where your piston is in the cylinder. So not to get into, there's videos on 4-cycle engines and 2-cycle engines and intake valves and exhaust valves and the compression stroke, the intake stroke, the exhaust stroke, power stroke, and they're all good. And if you want to get into detail, by all means, there's a bunch of them out there to watch. But when it comes to timing, right, you have a piston in a cylinder, and we're just going to talk about one piston and not the front piston or the rear piston. We're just going to talk basics. So you have a piston, and that piston comes up in your compression stroke, which just means I've already got air and a gas mixture and I'm ready to explode. And if the piston comes up to the top, what happens is there's an explosion above the piston, which pushes the piston back down. And if you have a V-twin, you as one's pumping down, the other one's here, and that's where you get that ba-dum, 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 that Harley-Davidson V45 sound. So this piston that comes up, let's just say we want to have a spark to ignite this fuel-air mixture when the piston is all the way at the top, called top dead center. Now, that's not necessarily true because you can advance the spark and you can retard the spark, and we'll get into that. But let's just go with the concept of piston comes up, spark happens when it's at the very top of its travel, and when the explosion happens, it pushes the piston down. And that's where you create and build power from. Converts that into torque and power and moves your rear wheel. So if we were to start that at the very top and we start the spark, the explosion doesn't happen instantaneously. It lights the fuel. It takes a little bit for the fuel to start to burn to create the big explosion. And when that happens, after the spark, maybe your piston's already halfway down, or not halfway down, but down enough that you didn't take advantage of the full explosion. You'd like the full effect to happen when you're at the top of your stroke, to where all that pressure is in a small little area and it pressurizes and pushes that piston back down. So what you do is you advance the sparking to create the spark before the piston's at the top dead center. So you're starting the spark a little sooner. You're actually starting the spark as your piston's coming up. And one thought is, okay, if my piston's coming up and I have a spark and I create an explosion, then isn't that pressure going to push against the piston as it's coming back up and create drag? And if it's too much advanced, the answer is yes. But if you can find out on your motorcycle with your piston and the way you have it set up and your cam that's in there and all the other variables, and you can have that spark start as it's coming up to the top, and as the fuel starts to ignite, all right, then it's all ignited and giving its full pressure when that piston hits the top. Because it takes a little bit. It doesn't happen instantaneously. So you're coming up, you spark, it starts to light the fuel, you're still coming up, and all the fuel is lit then, and boom, you push that piston back down. That's where you want to be to get maximum power. The opposite of advanced is retarded. So when you retard your spark, you're creating a spark past the top of the piston. So now, as your piston's coming up, it doesn't spark coming up to get maximum pressure. It doesn't spark at the top dead center. It sparks as the piston's going down. So you've changed the spark to spark later. And there's some reasons for that, and probably a lot more than what I know. But one of the reasons for that, and especially on the older bikes that have manual advancement, and you're able to change your timing with your handle, your left grip, is that when you're starting a bike, you can retard the timing to where it doesn't kick as bad, and it's a little easier to start. And you can also then, once it's started, adjust your timing to where it's fully advanced. And the guys that really know their bikes and the old timers, they could hear they could hear their engine, and maybe when they were going up a hill, they would retard the timing a little bit and do some things to make that bike run better. So, without getting into any more detail than that, that's what timing is. It's just, when do you create the spark to create the explosion? At what point is that piston in the cylinder? So, we're going to get into setting up the timing on this 61 Panhead. It is an early 61, and in early 61 they came out with dual points. And most of the older bikes, prior to that, all of the bikes, all the older Harleys, had single point ignition. And that single set of contacts fired the spark in the front and the rear cylinder at the same time. In 1961, they came up with dual spark, and they have two sets of contacts, and they fire a spark on the front cylinder and fire a spark on the rear cylinder. And that elongated the set of contacts, lasted longer. And you'll hear a lot of things. I mean, most of the stuff you read says, get rid of it, put a new timer in, new distributor, go with a single point of contact, and don't mess around with it. And then you run into guys that say, no, that's one of the best ignition systems Harley ever put on, and it's difficult to set up. But boy, when you know how to set it up, it's a wonderful thing. And being that I've never set one up, I don't know. So, if anyone out there has a comment, can tell me. Now, let me get back to the early 61s. Early 61s, they had a mark on the flywheel that just showed one mark that could get you to top dead center of the front of the front piston. And later 61 models had two marks. One was for the front top dead center, one was for the rear top dead center, and that's how you set the rear, from what I understand, that's how you set the rear set of contacts. So when you only have the front one, which I do, I think you set the front one up first from my reading, and then the rear one, you're kind of adjusting the gap on the rear set of contacts. And I bought a top dead center tool so that I know exactly what top dead center is. How that's going to help me, I'm not sure, because I need to know the degrees before that top dead center that I need to have that spark, and I haven't found that out yet. So if anybody has any wisdom, knowledge that they can pass on to me as I set this up, we greatly appreciate it. We'll let you know how it goes. You're going to see me do it. You're going to see me set it up. After we get the timing set and the actual gap on the ignition points set up, I'm probably getting close to putting on the carburetor and start to bolt the tanks on, do the fuel lines, and see if we can get this thing fired up. And I'll probably try to fire it up. I'll put that on video so that it's fired up. You'll get to see the first kicks. We'll see if it starts in 2 or 3 kicks. We'll see if it doesn't start at all. You'll get the real deal. So going to be a learning experience. Anybody has any input, I'd appreciate it, and appreciate your time. If you're gonna if you're gonna write them, it's great if you could pay somebody to do all your work. This channel started out as a pure spoof, me and Jonesy, little laugh here and there. If you ever watch the first video, it's just a joke. We just pretend like we're giving a lot of information and don't actually give any information at all, and it's kind of silly, and that's what it was all about. We're still kind of silly, but we're having fun, and now it's kind of been cool doing this because I'm getting comments and I'm learning from other people, which is technology's cool. So you get a chance, smash that bell, punch that monkey in the throat, step on that butterfly, and all the other things that you're supposed to do on these channels. And have fun, ride safe. If you're going to ride them, wrench them. And again, if you can pay for someone to wrench them, God bless you. If you can't, this is built for the average guy that has a couple tools, that's mechanical. It's got some, reasoning skills, and work on your own bike. It's fun. It is for me anyhow. So have a good one. See you next time.